pushing on, but then you went too far. When your ship has sailed and all your dreams are lost, everything is wrong, you feel like it's your fault. Just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life goes slow, just call me. Just call me. Just call me. Just call me. You're stronger now than you ever been. You gotta leave now, it's time to catch the wind. You will climb up high and look through the clouds, and when you're feeling low, I know you'll bounce back. Oh, and just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call me. Just call me. Just call me. Just call me.
After a race around a bigger track last week at Iowa Speedway, we get even shorter here this week as we head to North Carolina and the Hickory Motor Speedway for round number 9 of the Western States Racing League Season 48. Good evening, everybody. My name is Frank Marchese. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. Alongside me, back next to me, Mike DeMoney. Mike, got an interesting setup here for this race here tonight, and it's going to be quite a fun evening here at this little half mile.
Yeah, it definitely is. We got several heats that are going to happen. Then we have that long main, so we'll get a little preview of what's going to happen as the night goes on, I believe.
Less than a half mile, actually, 0.34 miles. So it's a short little one here at Hickory. As Mike touched on, we are going to be doing heat races here tonight. Because of the amount of entrants, which is 23, so it's not like we're short on people here. We are going to have 4 heat races, 20 laps each, and then all 23 drivers will go into the feature race, which will be a 60-lap run to see who will take the overall win. So it'll give these guys a chance to run around this racetrack with a little bit of a shorter field and then go into the big race, which is 2/3 longer than the heat races, and then go for the win.
Yeah, I mean, you get to kind of see what your truck's set up to do after qualifying and getting that race trim before you actually have to go, fight for the race win. So it'll be interesting to see who's able to make some of those adjustments. I mean, it's less than a half mile, and the lap times have been 15 seconds or under. So
always nice to have a little bit of practice before you go for the actual trophy. We'll take a look right now at the point standings coming into tonight. Jeff Schmeier with his win last week, becoming the 8th different driver to win in 8 races this season. Jeff Hollingsworth in second place right now, dominated that race at Iowa last week. Unfortunately, could not come away with the race win, sitting 23 points behind Jeff Schmeier. Still a lot of racing left to go here this season. We hit the halfway point in the year next week. Still a lot of time to make up for any lost ground.
yeah, not only is there a lot of time, but these guys do have several drop weeks. So if you had a bad week here or there, you definitely can move up the points as the season goes along if you have better points days towards the end of the season.
There have been new drivers coming into the series every single week. Some names that we are used to, some that we are seeing for the first time. We had one of those series debutants who is not here this week, finished on the podium, I should say, last week at Iowa. We're about a minute away from going into the qualifying session. Unfortunately, because of the way SDK is with the heat racing system on iRacing, we're unfortunately not going to have the top overhead scroll up for much of the night. But we definitely will keep you up to date on what is going on as far as where the laps are, who's a lap down, and the 6 drivers that are going to be running in each heat. I think you guys will be able to sort out quite fine on your own.
Yeah, that is the nice thing about only having 6 drivers out there. Makes for an easy race to follow.
Absolutely. As we are about to flip over into the qualifying session, something that we will talk about over the course of the day, especially tomorrow night with the Thunderclap iRacing series starting their season off at Daytona. Tomorrow night, there were a lot of changes that were made to these cars and trucks and open wheel cars and what have you on the iRacing service here this morning because the Season 2 update rolled out. So these cars might be handling a little bit different from what they were handling last time they tried these trucks out. Earl Weaver might explain why Earl Weaver did almost 300 laps. David Weaver did 315 laps over the course of the last 2 hours as practice for this event, as we see Earl Weaver out on track right now.
It definitely had his practice time and got here and got in his truck early, turning those laps. The first lap for Earl Weaver, 15:48, but Wayne Hutchinson, Brian Barnes, 14:81 and 82.
Dan Brazington, a solid first lap as well for him in that Wix Filters number 29. Wayne Hutchinson, though, spinning coming out of turn 4, so he will not get a chance to better his previous time. Brian Barnes does not either, as Charles Woods, third quickest on his first lap. We'll see what he can do here on lap number 2, keeping it right down on the bottom. And Woods betters his time, but not his position, as Dennis Fuson goes fourth quickest. Bob Beltrami, once again, back from surgery. Ran a handful of laps at Iowa last week. 6th place on his qualifying attempt, and Lyle Swearingen around backwards in the number 68 on his second lap, was able to take pole, though, on his first.
Chad Simpson, first lap of 15:29. See if he can better it this time by.
Noticing a lot of drivers coming over from Sim Racer's Edge. Chad Simpson Coming home second place in the championship last season for SRE. Making his Western States debut here tonight, Jeff Hollingsworth running in P8 right now. As far as his first qualifying attempt, lap number 2 for Hollingsworth puts him P4, which I believe, if I know the iRacing heat system the way I think I do, would put him on pole for heat number 4 as Keith Kellman brings it to a stop on his first lap in the 07.
Wayne Fleet just getting started here.
Ten-minute qualifying session here, so these guys do have plenty of time. It'll only take about 45 seconds to get all the way around here 3 times, so it does not take long to get laps done around here, as Wayne Fleet on lap number 1 will go P14 at a 15.20. Ross Rawlings fastest of all on the first half of the lap. Second half, let's see where he goes. P3 for Ross Rawlings. And he'll call it there.
I think everybody's just trying to at least get one lap down and figure out where they're going to be starting here. Looks like we have about 4 that have not taken a qualifying lap yet. Still have plenty of time to do it, though.
Jeff Schmeier, Butch Davis, Tim Bates, and Carl Burke, the 4 drivers that have yet to take a qualifying time, as we see Jeff Hollingsworth continue to put down some practice laps here for the moment. And again, with a vast majority of this field having qualified already, this is going to be a little bit of a downtime for this racetrack, and guys knowing what the benchmark is, a 14.800 from Lyle Swearingen. Seeming like turn 4 is going to be a little bit of a bugaboo for some of these guys, as we see Butch Davis rolling out on track at the number 43. As Butch Davis, middle line, bottom line here on this first lap. Halfway through the qualifying session, Davis, so he's going to try to make that second lap be the one that counts. 16th fastest on lap number 1 for the 43.
Definitely looks like he has the pretty good line handled out here. See how fast he goes this time. 12th quickest.
An advancement, but not by much. Got inside the 15-second bracket at a 14.95. So now that will leave Jeff Schmeier, Tim Bates, and Carl Burke here left to qualify. As for Schmeier, we're used to seeing this, usually waiting it out towards the very end, but I think with all of his competition out on track, or having already set a time, I think he'd come out a little bit quicker, don't you?
I would I would think so, but you never know. It looks like Carl Burke probably isn't in session anymore.
So that would leave just Jeff Schmeier and Tim Bates left to qualify then if Carl Burke is no longer here. I think Tim Bates might have gone as well. I don't know if he has returned. I did see that he had gone. I don't know if he has come back in that number 6. So that would leave 22 drivers here to take the green flag. Again, 4 20-lap heats we are scheduled for tonight, and then all drivers will make the 60-lap feature. And those will kick off after the next 3 minutes of qualifying ticks down. And from what we're hearing, we are waiting patiently on the qualifying attempt of one Jeff Schmeier.
It looks like he's the only one left.
Being very patient with that clock. And Jeff, I know that you're thinking about best lines you can run, the time that you can get, probably waiting for the track to cool down that 1 degree to help you out. But this is also the time where we have to think of the broadcast a little bit. Oh, and he has thought of the broadcast. Here he comes out onto the racetrack now for qualifying.
Perfect timing there.
Attaboy. See, he's a showman, Jeff Schmeier. He is.
I don't know. We've seen him do it. We've seen him do it a couple times. Get that second lap right at the flag, right when that clock runs 0.
He is a showman for sure. As Jeff Schmeier making sure all eyes are on him for his qualifying run. 15th quickest on his first lap. 15:10 for the number 30. He was second quickest in practice, so we know that 30 has pace in it. As that Ford F-150 rounds 3 and 4, he will go up to P7 of 14:88, and that will officially do it for the qualifying session here tonight. Lyle Swearingen, for the first time this season, sits on pole. So that will leave Lyle Swearingen, Wayne Hutchinson, Ross Rawlings, and Brian Barnes rolling off first for their respective heats. Again, 22 cars, 6 cars in each heat. It's going to be a fun and interesting little day at the races here at Hickory.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now that they're back in their trucks and they got at least some laps in here, but we'll see what these guys can do on the short track before we head to Daytona next week.
Absolutely, one heck of a way to end off the first half of the season, as we are getting set to switch over into the first heat. And now the interesting thing comes in here, Mike, is do you want to have one of these early heats, or would you rather wait for one of the later ones, so this way when the feature race comes around, you're a little bit more prepared?
I would say you want to be in the third or fourth one, just because you have that I'll call it muscle memory, because you were just in that truck. But we'll see what happens. As with heat races, they kind of spread out who was quickest and who was slowest, but we'll see if any of these guys towards the back have race pace to get up there and move up the field in the main.
Absolutely. We will have 2 pace laps here for the heat races. Lyle Swearingen and Jeff Hollingsworth will start on row number 1. Bob Beltrami and Butch Davis, row 2. Wayne Fleet and Paul Crumry will round out the field here for heat number 1. As 2 FBR Motorsport teammates in this race, Lyle Swearingen and Butch Davis, could be a little bit helpful knowing that you have a guy in here that's not going to race you tooth and nail, at least in the heat race. Then all bets are off once we go into the main race.
Yeah, I'd imagine heat races we're going to see a lot more forgiveness than we will when it comes to the main. But you never know, though.
Absolutely. Both drivers are going to be searching for their first Western States win, at least here on Tuesday nights would be that case. So here we go. First set of 20 laps. Green flag is in the air. Lyle Swearingen off and running. Jeff Hollingsworth tucked in right behind that number 68 truck.
Yeah, it looked like he had a plan to get just behind him and let him take that lead, as he's not going to be racing him for the lead too early. But as I say that, he drives down to the inside, is going to try and take the lead away from Swearingen here.
Jeff Hollingsworth to the front, led 118 of the 160 laps at Iowa last week. So he certainly has that short track fever. As we jump on board with the U.S. Coast Guard number 97. Working lap number 4 here of this first heat race.
Definitely seems to have found the line that he likes. Looks like Crumry in the back there is having a little bit of an issue, but
yeah, Paul Crumry has had a couple of problems there in that number 88, and from what I could see, there are no cautions in these heat races, which means if you blink, these heat races are going to be over quick, as there goes Butch Davis around Bob Beltrami. That would be for third. Now, had there been more than 27 cars in this session, that third place would have been the transfer spot to go straight to the main before anyone else got through to the consi.
So does that change the way you would race in these heat races, Frank, when you know that no matter what, you're going to the main?
I would use it as a test session, which I think a lot of these guys are. So everyone's going to get a 20-lap in-race test session before they go to the main show, as we ride on board now with Bob Beltrami. He's going to need this test session, certainly. Again, he had wrist surgery, I believe it was, or was it wrist or hip surgery that he had?
Hip surgery.
It was hip surgery.
Yep.
Kept him out for 2 weeks, came back last week at Iowa, ran about, if I remember correctly, about 40 laps or so before he called it a night. So we are halfway through this first heat race, and everyone pretty spread out. This is the closest battle right now, is Jeff Hollingsworth about 0.4 of a second ahead of Lyle Swearingen. Then it's Butch Davis, Bob Beltrami, Wayne Fleet, and then Paul Crumry.
Yeah, this has got to be a little hard for Beltrami. They're, working the gas and brake pedals pretty quick here on the short track, but he's sticking it out and still up in 4th position right now. So
absolutely. Taking a look, Beltrami completed 32 laps at Iowa before he called it no mas. So we are currently about to begin lap 15 of this race. So we've got about 6 laps to go here. Hollingsworth is not really putting too much of a gap on Lyle Swearingen. They're only about 100th of a second apart. By the way, this is what happened to Paul Crumry. This was back on lap 2 of this heat. Battling side by side with Wayne Fleet, coming out of turn number 4 into turn number 1. That's how quick it happens, and the back end came around. Dove into the corner a little bit too quick, did Paul Crumry, and that was what happened there.
Yep, working through lap 17 now, so this will be over in a hurry here as we're on board with Swearingen.
Fontana, California native. Fastest qualifiers, only led about a lap or so, and you can see that these corners are not, they're not pure arches. They do have little bends and kinks in them. They're not perfect circles that these guys are trying to circulate around, as Paul Crumry gets around Wayne Fleet. So a nice little recovery for the number 88 to get back around the number 11.
Yeah, at these short tracks here, it's more about rhythm than it is speed usually.
And right now, One man has a lot of rhythm. That will be the number 97 as he will come across to win heat race number 1. Lyle Swearingen will cross in second, Butch Davis third, Bob Beltrami fourth, Paul Crumry fifth, and Wayne Fleet will cross in the sixth and final spot here in this heat. As now we'll take a look at the starting grid for heat number 2. Mike?
Well, Wayne Hutchinson was able to qualify P2, so he will lead them off here. Charles Woods just to his outside. Dan Brasington and Ryan Steele in row 2. Row 3 is Earl Weaver and Keith Kellman. So those are the 6 drivers that will take part in heat number 2 here.
Right now, just waiting on Keith Kellman to grid up, and then we will get rolling here for heat number 2. Again, 20 laps that this heat will see, and that was about as quick as you could have possibly asked for as far as the first heat. No cautions. Everything looking good.
As Charles Woods spins those tires there as he gets going.
Find a way to get some heat in them. These are very short pace laps. You're only doing 0.68 miles here over these 2 pace laps. That's not a lot of room to heat the tires.
Definitely not. So we'll see if these guys get lined up and just kind of go through the paces as we kind of saw in heat number 1, or if we get a little more racy action here in heat number 2.
Again, all of these drivers will advance over to the main race, so not fighting for positions, not fighting to stay out of a consi. So it's straight racing right now for these guys. The pace truck comes on off. Wayne Hutchinson immediately goes. We are green flag racing here for heat number 2. Ryan Steele gets ahead of Dan Brasington and Earl Weaver going around in turn 1.
Looks like he might just got on the brakes a little bit too much and tried to stay out of that outside lane and just spun her around.
Have seen that already here. And also what we saw is that driver who made the mistake on lap number 2 get back up into that into the 5th position. So still plenty of time to catch up here if you're Earl Weaver.
Yeah, it definitely is. But looking at these lap times versus the lap times from heat number 1, heat number 1 was way faster. So we'll see if these guys can find that race pace to get up there into that sub 15 seconds.
Charles Woods, that last time around, did a 14.95. Meanwhile, Earl Weaver was the fastest car on the track at a 14.84. So those 300 laps of practice over the 2 hours prior to this race certainly meant something to that 46.
Yeah, he definitely must have figured something out, because that is the fastest lap we've seen in this heat so far.
Riding on board
here with Ryan Still.
Yep. Dan Brasington behind it. Ooh, there's the... Oh, he got on the gas a little bit too much going through turn 4. And as I said during qualifying, we've seen a lot of guys have those problems in turn 4. See here, we were riding on board with him, just gets on the gas too much. Oh, and unfortunately for Dan Brasington, had nowhere to go in that number 29. As that will be the first caution of the evening. These caution laps do count towards the race total. So it's not 20 green flag laps, it is just 20 straight laps. And wouldn't you know it, Earl Weaver's up to 5th.
Yeah, that didn't take too long there, but
Paul Crumry is getting jealous, I think, as here comes Ryan Steele. Did the same thing you did, Paul, just a little bit quicker.
yeah, the fact that these caution laps are counting is It's going to be good for Wayne Hutchinson there because he'll just basically be cruising around up front. So I imagine we'll have at least a couple more laps around.
Wayne Hutchinson was second place in points going into last week at Iowa. Qualified 7th, but finished 21st. That would drop him from 2nd down to 4th in points, 35 points behind Jeff Schmeier. So Hutchinson certainly looking for a rebound race as we get set to go back to green flag racing here with 10 laps to go here in the sprint, here in heat number 2. And there we go.
Yeah, Wayne Hutchinson gets that huge jump again. Charles Woods just kind of stays behind him. Keith Kelman made a huge move on that outside line. And is going to get up to 3rd. Ryan Steele up to 4th.
Got around. Dan Brazenton did both of those drivers. Earl Weaver trying to do the same now as Ryan Steele back up into that 3rd position. As one would appear as though there are fast repairs here, because that number 12 was about junk.
Yeah, he had front and rear damage, and it looks perfectly clean right now.
Last time we did this, he gassed it up too much coming off of 4. We're good this time, as this is a little bit of a tire advantage right now for Ryan Steele, which could also be why he is making up so much time here. Unfortunately, short track racing, it's a little bit difficult to pass.
Yeah, you have to definitely be hitting those cars at just the right place in order to make those passes as he goes to the high side of Charles Woods here.
Trying to outbrake him going into the corner, unfortunately for Ryan Steele. Not where he's going to beat Charles Woods, as Woods now gets back clear of the number 12. So Charles Woods staying out in 2nd place as Wayne Hutchinson starting to run away a little bit here. 4 laps to go and we hit the line.
Yeah, 4 to go. Looks like Earl Weaver elected to come down pit lane there. Still to that outside, trying to make it work, and it's just not doing much for him there.
Maybe Crumrye's not as jealous anymore as Weaver falls a lap down. Very easy to do around here with only 15-second laps. There goes Earl Weaver.
Just blink and you could be a lap down pretty quick. So
blink and you miss the whole race as Wayne Hutchinson out in front by about a half a second here. Half a lap to go. And Wayne Hutchinson through turns 3 and 4 will take heat number 2. Charles Woods will hold on to 2nd. Ryan Steele, Dan Brazenton, Keith Kelman, and Earl Weaver, your 6 finishers. And right now, Mike, heat number 3 rolling out onto the track.
Yeah, these go by pretty quick. So heat number 3, we got Ross Rollins and Jeff Schmeier in row 1. Row 2, Fred Williams and Chad Simpson. Row 3 is Julian Ricci and Timothy Bates. We'll see if Timmy gets in his car, which it doesn't look like he will. So we'll be down to 5 trucks in this heat.
And we're anticipating 5 trucks in this heat as well as 5 trucks in the next heat. So that's the anticipation here, as Ross Rawlings will line up with the championship leader to his outside. Fred Williams will line up with the runner-up in the Sim Racers Edge Championship these last couple of seasons. Chad Simpson to his outside. Then there's Julian Ricci with a phantom of Tim Bates lining up to his outside. Didn't want to leave Julian out.
Looks like Julian was going to try and anticipate that start and had to slow up just a little bit as Fred Williams is on the brakes.
2 pace laps here in the short tracks. Tracks under a mile long get 2 pace laps here in iRacing. About to complete that 2nd pace lap here as we begin heat number 3. A big stab of the throttle by Ross Rawlings, almost spun himself out. gets Jeff Schmeier clear. It's Chad Simpson and Fred Williams battling for third. Simpson on the high line is going to be the one that comes out on top. Side by side for the race lead.
Yeah, Schmeier down to the inside is going to try and take advantage of that big wiggle that Ross Rollins had, and he will do it as Fred Williams goes sideways around the track.
Julian Ricci pushes around Fred Williams, and that will be the caution. And the first real instance of multi-car action. That's another thing about these short racetracks. You don't have a lot of time to get it recovered before you get put a lap down, as here comes Fred Williams once again. Going into turn one. Ricci right behind him. Just right through the back of him. And then just pushes him around.
Yeah, I just was not anticipating Williams getting on the brakes as quick as he did.
So off the back of Fred Williams. Can't get much closer than that, and boom. Well, maybe you can, and then they just pushed him around.
Yeah, a couple more taps there.
What's an international hauler? Okay, gotcha. So Jeff Schmeier, Ross Rawlings, Chad Simpson, Julian Ricci, and Fred Williams. The running order here as we get set to begin lap number 5 in this heat race. And it looks like we will double up now and get going back green flag racing on lap 6. And because they did not complete 2 full laps prior to a caution coming out, they will go single file for this restart.
So if you're Ricci, you're probably looking in your rearview mirror, right?
It wouldn't surprise me. As here comes Jeff Schmeier. Ricci all over the back now of Chad Simpson, trying to go into turn number 1. Both drivers dive in a little bit deep. No contact made by anyone, though.
Looks like they've got their synchronization working there, as Jeff Schmeier's starting to pull away just a little bit from Ross Rollins.
Gaps managed. And Schmeier, fastest of all the first half of the lap here this time around, and he will set the fastest lap of the heat at a 14:92. Interesting year, that. That's Ross Rawlings sitting in second. Everyone about 0.3 of a second apart from each other, so no real close action. We'll leave that for the 22 drivers that will run in the main race here tonight. Is Julian Ricci getting loose coming out of turn 4? Does he miss the tire? I don't believe he did. Fred Williams also got loose as well. We stay green, though.
It looked like Ricci went right between everything on pit lane there. So
here's what happened to Fred Williams. Coming out of turn 4. Gassed it up too much coming out of the corner. Kept it straight, though, so we stayed green because of that. And then here's Julian Ricci coming out of the corner. Slide, miss. That's not, we completely missed what I was trying to get there, so we'll see. Try it once again. Third time lucky. Here we go. Misses everything, misses the pit wall. Oh, he did miss the tire. So there you go. During that little replay excursion, you missed nothing.
Nope, Jeff Schmeier's still out to half-second lead still. Looks like everybody up front's about a half-second apart, so.
0.6 of a second Jeff Schmeier has over Ross Rawlings. Ross Rawlings has just about the same over Chad Simpson. Simpson with 4 seconds over Ricci, and Ricci with a further 5 over Fred Williams. So everything going to plan right now as far as Jeff Schmeier is concerned.
With all the bumping and braking and different brake zones that we've seen on track, when we get to that main, it's going to be interesting to see who can work their way through the field.
What else is going to be very, very interesting, and these guys shouldn't have to pit during the main race, I will say, as we come to the white flag. One more lap to go here in heat number 3. There are only 16 pit stalls here at Hickory, so 22 drivers for 16 pit stalls could be very interesting, just in case something happens. As Fred Williams goes around right in front of the race leaders. Does not matter. Jeff Schmeier, the winner of heat number 3.
Three down, one to go.
Ross Rawlings, Chad Simpson, Julian Ricci, and Fred Williams, your finishing order here for heat number 3. One more heat to go before we get into the main race. They are lining up on track right now.
Yep. Brian Barnes and Dennis Fuson in row 1. Row 2, David Weaver and James Campbell. And then Angelo Espo and Carl Burke. Looks like Carl Burke, though, is not on the grid. So 5 trucks left to go this time.
So Brian Barnes, after qualifying 4th in that number 4, will pull up heat number 4.
Popsicles and vodka on row 1.
Sounds like a good night. I mean, why wouldn't you? Finish it off with some York peppermint patties from row 2. We get set to go green flag racing. Off we go. And boy, oh boy, what a jump Brian Barnes got. David Weaver again completed 320 laps in practice. Now in 3rd.
It looks like he's got that truck kind of right where he wants it after he got past James Campbell there.
Absolutely, and Campbell, a little bit wiggly, you could see, going into turn number 3. Oh,
Yep.
that's a little too much. And he did hit the tire. Off the racing line, so we will stay green. Brian Barnes still well out in front, 0.7 of a second. Brian Barnes has. Dennis Fuson is 1.3 seconds over David Weaver, and then Angelo Espo finally driving a car I can get behind, running in P4. That's
I guess it is.
Slick, it's a slick-looking hot rod.
I guess it's about time that he changes that Jets theme for the Mets, you know.
Ah, boy. It's baseball season coming right on up. As Brian Barnes starting to lose that lead a little bit. Was 0.6 of a second, now down to 3.
Yeah, it's almost like he's trying to just manage it because he sees the lap car in front of him, but you never know.
And again, it's not entirely sure, to be honest, what you get for winning the heat race. I would assume it's the top 4 starting spots for the main. That would be my guess.
I would assume so, but...
So, I mean, you would love to start 4th. Because now we got a little bit of trouble here with James Campbell in front. inching closer to the halfway point here in this heat race. And Brian Barnes crossing the line halfway through, 10 down, 10 to go.
And it looks like he's pulling that gap just a little bit more as Fuson has to deal with the lapper just to his outside.
Dennis Fuson not able to get that drive off the corner the way he would want to because of that. And Fuson now finally does get clear, although a half a second behind Brian Barnes. Barnes does not seem interested in giving up that inside line all that much, especially down in 3 and 4.
No, it looks like he's kind of stuck it right on that line almost for a little bit, but that time he floats up just a little bit, and Fuson tries to take advantage.
Fuson is right on that line, and that's what helped catch him up. A good 2/10 that lap, a 15:18 for Brian Barnes. Compare that to a 15:03 for Dennis Fuson. Right down on the line is where you want to be. And I think Brian Barnes got that memo because he was just a 10th quicker than Fuson that last lap.
As we get to about 5 to go now, on board with Dennis Fuson.
David Weaver about 4 seconds behind this pair. Angelo Espo a further 3.5 seconds behind him. Hear how much he's having to roll through the corner. Fortunately, Brian Barnes a little bit too quick as Barnes really drifts up high there, leaves an opening for Dennis Fuson coming down in the final 4 laps of this race. As Angelo Espo now has gone around. Oh, don't tell me he scratched up the truck. He's off to pit road now.
Yeah, I probably had to get that Mets mobile there fixed, but
Fuson had a big wiggle coming off at turn 2, lost him a good half a second, and that should hand the win of this heat over to Brian Barnes.
and it should be getting a white flag this time by.
Yes, sir. Here they come. Well, Barnes may not have been the quickest heat winner, but he certainly had the least amount of drama as Dennis Fuson really sent it down into turn number 1, trying to gain whatever he could, but it is completely in vain as Brian Barnes will coast off of corner number 4. He will be the winner of heat number 4 in his number 4.
That's a lot of force.
Yep, and it's the stars aligned. So what we will do now is we will take a quick break. We'll be right back. These guys are in a 5-minute warm-up session before we get into the 60-lap feature race. 22 cars getting set to go around the Hickory Motor Speedway. We will be back right after this. Getting set to go main event racing here at Hickory Motor Speedway. The heats are done. 60 laps of racing still yet to come. We'll take a look now at the starting grid here for tonight's race. Jeff Hollingsworth, winner of heat number 1, will line up next to Wayne Hutchinson, winner of heat number 2 on the front row. Jeff Schmeier, winner of heat 3, and Brian Barnes, winner of heat 4, will line up in row number 2. Lyle Swearingen and Charles Woods will make up row number 3. Row 4 will see Ross Rawlings and Dennis Fuson. Row 5 goes to Butch Davis and Ryan Steele. Chad Simpson and David Weaver round out the top half of the field.
We got Bob Beltrami and Dan Brazington in row 7. Row 8, Julian Ricci, James Campbell, Paul Krumrei, and Keith Kellman in row 9. Row 10, Fred Williams and Angelo Espo. Row 11 is Wayne Fleet and Earl Weaver. And the last two are not on the grid, so we will go racing here with 22 trucks.
That we will. Weather conditions here for this main race here tonight. We are just past 4:30 p.m. in sim time, 78-degree track temperature, and this will explain a lot of what we saw in the heats. 109-degree track temperature, so it is a scorcher down on track. Wind is rather light as we get set to go racing. Jeff Hollingsworth and Wayne Hutchinson leading them down out of turn number 4. 60 laps here at Hickory. We are green.
Hollingsworth just shotgunned it and is out to almost a half-second lead over Hutchinson. And back in the field we go 2 by 2.
Charles Woods and Butch Davis battling for 7th. That's Davis on the inside, Woods on the outside, with Chad Simpson lining up behind him in the number 46. Ryan Steele there as well. Everyone else pretty much single file as the procession goes on behind the 43 and the 40.
These guys are trying to get a little bit of ground to kind of go back to single file, but not happening back here as Butch Davis finally is able to clear Charles Woods, and Woods is side by side with Ryan Steele, and Chad Simpson's trying to stick his nose in there too.
Oh, very much a Martinsville effect as that's the 91 of Ross Rawlings sliding going into turn number 3. He'll keep it straight though, so we will stay green. Ross Rawlings was up in the top 5. He is now fallen all the way back down to 17th, so not quite last, but close.
Yeah, it looks like just slid a little bit, and at least he was able to save it, and we stay green. But
this is what happened here with Ross Rawlings. Ooh, coming out of turn 2 down the back, just completely drifted down the back straightaway.
Didn't even hit a wall, so he's got no damage. So he just has to figure out a way to work his way back up through the field to get where he wants to be.
Dan Brazington side by side with David Weaver going through turn 4. The 29 of Brazington getting the 13th position. Is everyone playing very, very nicely here as we're pretty much single filed out all throughout this field. Jeff Hollingsworth with a half a second lead over Wayne Hutchinson. Hutchinson with about a little bit less than a half a second on Jeff Schmeier running in 3rd.
And these first 3 heat winners are playing relatively nice here, giving each other plenty of room, but we're only 10 laps into the 60-lap race.
Julian Ricci now looking to the inside of Charles Woods, and it's a lot like a Martinsville situation. If you get on that outside line, there's a very good chance that you are not going to be able to get down to the bottom for quite some time, and you will hemorrhage spots in the process, as I believe Paul Krumrei is about to find out in the 88.
Krumrei was trying to make a pass, but just doesn't quite have enough speed to get around, and now he's stuck on that outside, and he's just going backwards.
Caution is out. Fred Williams has gone around in turn 4. Louisville, Kentucky native, Fred Williams, and we'll see what happened with him here. Did he get help, or was it by himself? Looks like it was going to be by himself here. As Williams just too hot going into turn 3. Slid it around right in front of the race leaders. Boy, that was close for Hollingsworth.
Yeah, that was close.
Jump on board here with Hollingsworth. 95 right in front of him. And turn down, keep turning. There you go. Boy, oh boy. Almost looked like there might have been somebody else around right in front of them going into turn 1. Couldn't quite tell who that was. May have been. I wanted to say Julian Ricci, but he's fine in 12th right now.
It looks like it probably was Ricci, but I don't. It would have had to been just before that yellow flag.
Does appear to be fine in that number 1. See, while we have a very short window of time here, we'll see if we can spot anything with Julian Ricci. Battling with Bob Beltrami here. Oh, it was Ricci. Kept it straight, though. Very good save from him. Man, my intuition is good. I didn't mean to sound like I was breaking my arm to pat myself on my back, my own back there, but.
No, it definitely was, and he made it through that, and he also avoided Fred Williams there too. So.
Almost a third of the way through this race already. Jeff Hollingsworth getting out to a very good jump. Now Wayne Hutchinson coming under fire from the points leader, Jeff Schmeier, down on the bottom. Brian Barnes trying to pick up a spot on Lyle Swearingen on the outside.
Yeah, Barnes is trying to stay down on that bottom line and not give any ground to anybody else. Swearingen was working that high side, and he's just going backwards now.
Decisively more aggressive start from the front of the field this time around as Swearingen up on that high line, and his teammate, boy, it's nice to have teammates, isn't it? Butch Davis lets him in. FBR Motorsports running 6, 7, and 8 right now.
It looks like Chad Simpson's looking down to the inside, going to try and maybe stick his nose in there, but
was trying to defend from Charles Woods on the outside in the 40, now trying to pass Butch Davis, and he will do just that, as it looks like Dan Brazington almost caught the pit wall, decides to go down pit road. And another incident happening just in front of us here. That's Keith Kelman backwards on the front straightaway. They might have to call a caution for this. Leaders come around, and yes, they do.
Keith Kelman and Earl Weaver involved in that one.
So we'll take a look here. A couple of replays. Dan Brazington, this was him going through turn 3 and 4. Just on the inside of Julian Ricci, just loses it. Just misses that tire at the edge of the pit wall. And then while that was going on, here's what happened between Earl Weaver and Keith Kelman. Kelman in the 07, Weaver in the 46. Weaver gets loose. Kelman guns it and gets loose.
It looked like Weaver was checking up because he saw Dan Brazington go into pit road there and didn't want to get caught up in that. But then Keith Kelman saw his opening to make a pass and just gunned it a little bit too fast, and around he went right in front of Weaver.
That's intriguing. Brian Barnes has come down pit road, 8 seconds worth of fuel in that popsicle number 4. I mean, I would hate to think that these guys are going to be short on fuel here tonight. So Brian Barnes goes from the top 5 down to 16th.
Looks like Paul Krumrei did it too.
In the legendary words of Chris Berman in The Longest Yard, let's call that one a questionable call. As we get ready to go back to green flag racing here, almost halfway through. Boy, you blink. We say it a lot. Boy, you blink and the race is almost over. Well, in this case, with a 0.3 of a mile track and 15-second laps, it really is blink and the race is almost over, as we're going side by side to get this race going again. Lap 29 of 60 is when we'll go green.
Pace truck is going to be in, and we'll see if Hollingsworth guns it coming out of the corner, and he does again, gets out to that almost half-second lead almost instantly. Schmeier and Hutchinson battling back side by side in second. Brian Steele was able to get down to that inside line in front of Swearingen.
Jeff Schmeier getting done unto him what he did to Wayne Hutchinson the restart prior. Schmeier not willing to give it up on that outside line. Ryan Steele there as well, trying to poke his nose in the 12. More side-by-side racing between Chad Simpson and Butch Davis. That settled itself down, as Hutchinson has finally gotten clear of Jeff Schmeier for second. Now it's between Schmeier and Steele for fourth, and he's going to lose out there.
You know, like we talked about earlier, you get in that outside line and you just start hemorrhaging positions. And if he doesn't get down soon, he could go back quite a ways here.
He was clear there for a moment from Lyle Swearingen. He's not anymore, as Swearingen now dives to the inside of the number 30. Swearingen, fastest qualifier, did not win his heat race, so he started in fifth, and now Schmeier will slot in between the two FBR cars of Swearingen and Davis.
It looks like he had just enough room to get down, and he took advantage when he had the chance there, but it looks like Davis might be looking to the inside to put him back to that outside line again.
Davis had a solid run in his heat race, as there goes Ross Rawlings around. Looks like he dove too deep into turn one. Just about recovered from the first mistake he made, is now Earl Weaver going around, and that will be the caution.
It looks like Earl Weaver got into Paul Krumrei, and Krumrei was able to save it, but Earl Weaver went into that outside wall and bounced back across the field again.
See what happened there. First is Earl Weaver. Saw the smoke, got loose in turn two. And you're right, just kind of overcorrected. Brazenton was too close and just shoved him around. And then here's what happened with Ross Rawlings. This looked like what happened at the other end of the track. Just got into turn one too deep and lost the back end. Very, very easy to do in these trucks. Lose the back end under heavy braking.
Yep. So Jeff Hollingsworth will get another chance to shotgun the start again.
This is one of those races where that first heat was going to be very, very important to start you up on pole for this race. Jeff Hollingsworth did not mess around in heat number one, a heat that took just a shade over 5 minutes to complete. He did not mess around, and he has not messed around here in this race thus far.
No, he figured out exactly what he needed to do. Now he's got up front, and he's got that start time down just about perfect. So as long as he's able to get those huge jumps he gets out in front and then just races his own line. So we'll see if he's able to continue to do that on this restart with, we'll get, what, about 19 laps to go?
Just about. So we had mentioned there were a lot of changes that were made to a lot of different moving parts within iRacing with this new 2023 Season 2 update. Not much you can test here at a short track like Hickory. However, next week at Daytona, I'm sure those changes will be put on full display. Also, a new car, a new track, an update to an old car, and then a free giveaway from iRacing this update. And if we get another caution here, we will explain further. But right now, Jeff Hollingsworth once again on the loud pedal. Wayne Hutchinson doing a great job of timing that restart. Gets a clear lane on the bottom, but Ryan Steele, as the caution's going to come out again, it looks like the 22 of Campbell. It is.
Looks like he just got on the loud pedal a little too soon and spun it right into that inside rail there.
See what happened with Campbell on the restart at 22. Yeah, set up for the start. Back end comes around, stuck in the wall. And of all the physics changes that iRacing made, that, unfortunately, the wall coming out and grabbing you, unfortunately, was not one of them.
Nope, it is not.
So the car changes that we saw, well, the new additions to iRacing with this update, the Circuit de Jerez, what used to be the final round of the Formula One season, a wonderful Spanish racetrack. See it in MotoGP now, still in use. Used to be the F1 test track before that moved to Barcelona. Wonderful, legendary circuit with so much great racing history now on the service. One of those tracks that you could definitely say long overdue being on this service. The other pay car, another one that I think a lot of people will find long overdue, the Renault Clio. So the Clio Cup will be coming to iRacing here with this update. If you went through iRacing today looking for your Chevy Monte Carlo SS and were disappointed to find that it was no longer there, well, that car was upgraded and updated to the late model stock car. Very, very nice car to drive. Drove it earlier. That is a free upgrade if you had purchased the Chevy Monte Carlo SS prior. And then the free car would have been the Rays FF 1600. Or to those of you who played Project Cars like I did, the Formula Rookie car is now in iRacing. And I can tell you it is just as fun to throw around in this game as it was in Project Cars. As we go back to green flag racing here, 12 laps to go. Single file restart. Jeff Hollingsworth manning the way.
Yeah, Jeff Hollingsworth didn't get the huge jump that he usually gets, so that single file must have threw him off just a little bit. But right now we got a battle heating up for second with Wayne Hutchinson and Ryan Steele. Ryan Steele was getting pretty close to trying to dive it inside of Hutchinson, but just couldn't quite get there as they have settled down a little bit now.
If this race goes green the rest of the way here, the final 10 laps or so, that final restart being single file would have been a godsend for Wayne Hutchinson to not have to fight Ryan Steele from the outside line to try to keep position. As we now have 10 laps to go as Lyle Swearingen gets in too deep and spins it. Caution is out.
Looks like he just spun around, didn't really hit anything, so that's good news for him.
Full 360 for Swearingen. It looked like his trouble started coming through 3 and 4. We'll show this replay again. Watch how he takes a little bit too much apron and then just bounces back up onto the track. Watch, there's the bounce. He's way up high on exit and then just looked like it completely messed up his entry to the corner.
Well, like we were talking about earlier, it's it's all about rhythm, and once you get thrown out of your rhythm, it's hard to get back into it that quick.
Absolutely. As we had one heck of a run to start this race off. We went almost a third of the race without having a caution flag, and now getting a couple of laps here and there as James Campbell will get back on the lead lap. Jeff Hollingsworth has led every lap thus far. So we are working on a race time right now of about 20 minutes. Not too bad. 100 laps of racing done in a grand total of about a half hour. Not too bad.
Yeah, pretty good. The guy who didn't want to see that caution come out has got to be Wayne Hutchinson, because Ryan Steele's going to be gunning for that lead, and he's just going to be down to the inside line in row 2 behind the leader here.
Hutchinson had a very, very good restart the last time they went double file. I think he's going to be a little bit more aggressive here as far as slamming the door going into turn 1. If he does get a very similar restart here this time, we're going to have 4 laps of green flag racing to go before our night at Hickory comes to a close. Jeff Hollingsworth leads them away. A good start for Hutchinson, but a better start for Steele. Steele really pushing on that inside line. Nose is ahead of Hutchinson. He's up to second.
Steele up to second, and if you look back in the field a little bit, you got Schmeier stuck on the outside line again. 3 wide. Brian Barnes in the middle.
Brian Barnes in the middle. Remember, Brian Barnes was in the top 5, came down pit road on lap 24. Fought back up to went back to 16th and has now fought his way up to 10th. Good recovery for Barnes.
Myers back up to 5th. Still stuck in that high line though.
Yep, battling with Chad Simpson now as the points leader will fall down to 6th. Jeff Hollingsworth coming onto the back straightaway. Winner of heat number 1. He has gone uncontested. Jeff Hollingsworth will win round number 9 here at Hickory, and with that become the first duplicate winner of this season.
Ryan Steele and Wayne Hutchinson round out the podium with Butch Davis in 4th and Chad Simpson in 5th.
What a night here at Hickory Motor Speedway. Very fast one. Jeff Hollingsworth comes away with the race win, his first since the opening round of the season. And as we had mentioned before, still plenty of time to cut into that points lead that Jeff Schmeier had built up. Boy, did he do that tonight.
Definitely did.
As the Demolition Derby post-race goes on, we are waiting for the drivers to make their way into the waiting room, and we'll give it another second here before we decide whether or not we're going to go 3-1 or 1-3. And right now it appears as though we are going to be going from 3-1. So, Mike, you are with our 3rd place finisher tonight, Wayne Hutchinson.
Hey, Wayne, Mike up in the booth. You got me?
Yep, gotcha.
Hey, man, heck of a race. You were able to basically win your heat and battle your way, or stay, I guess, up in that top 3. How was that race out there tonight?
It was really tricky. I mean, the track, to start out, the track was really hot and slippery. So you really had to be careful. And I was super surprised to get, a top 2 qualifying, because I knew that, qualifying up front was really going to help. You just kind of stay up front in the heat, not cause any trouble, and then, see what could happen in the feature, right? And it worked out. I mean, we stayed out of trouble. late restart on the outside didn't, cost me a spot, but that's fine. It was a third place on a track like this is, I'll take that anytime.
So as we go from here to Daytona next week, what are your thoughts going from such a short track to that super speedway?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I got the points this week because Daytona, you just never know, right? It's you could have a great race, or you could be done in the first 5 laps. So it'll be fun. I think Daytona is always fun to race. Nice close big packs, but you don't really have control of what's going on around you. Anything could happen. So looking forward to it though.
Definitely. Well, anybody you want to thank for your heat win and your podium finish here tonight?
Sure. Just my dog bear team. We all qualified well tonight, and because we were all chatting quite a bit during practice, trying to figure out how best to drive the truck and what brake bias setting, things like that. So we were all working together to get it dialed in, and that I think that helped. We were all up in the top 5, 6. So pretty good night for us.
Definitely. Well, congrats once again on your podium finish here, and maybe we'll look forward to talking to you next week or in a couple weeks anyway.
10-4. Have a good one.
So that was our third place finisher, Wayne Hutchinson. I'm now joined by our second place finisher, Ryan Steele. Ryan, that last restart was the godsend for you. It looked like it was darn near impossible to pass out there. How crucial was that last caution coming out for you?
Man, every caution that came out was critical, because every restart, if you weren't more than a half a second faster than the guy in front of you, you weren't going to pass him if he didn't give you the bottom. You just weren't going to do it unless you were going to hit the guy, and I'm not willing to hit people out of the way. So, you had to be given the bottom lane to make passes, and cautions was pretty much the only way to get it.
How difficult was this racetrack? The track temperature when you guys started was 109 degrees, and with how much power that these trucks can lay down, how difficult was it to just get around this racetrack, let alone try to pass and race people?
Yeah, it was definitely more difficult when we started the event, because when I got into practice before the race started, it was like 130 degrees on the track. So it generally got easier as the race went on. Like you probably saw me during the heat. I spun out twice just because I was too overeager. And at the end, I was actually kind of comfortable. But it was definitely, I would say, the most challenging race we've had this season so far.
Well, there's going to be a lot of throttle control involved in next week. However, it's going to be for a completely different reason as we go to the trucks at Daytona to round out the first half of the season next week. Super Speedway racing, it's always a wild card. What are your thoughts going into Daytona?
Until very, very recently, like in the last couple months, I had never won a race on a super speedway track in the whole time I've been on the iRacing service, and I've been signed up since 2008. Had not had very much luck there until all of a sudden, bam, I got a couple wins in official races, and so I'm like, suddenly I have a little bit of confidence in those races, but also it's still a lot of luck. But I guess I'm looking forward to it a little bit. I think I'd rather be on some other tracks, but I'll take Daytona.
All right. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
And well, as always, I got to thank my dog bear team, because they were also critical for the race today, because I tend to go for aggressive brake bias to the rear, and they gave me a heads up right as I got into the session, like, nope, don't do that. You're not going to live if you do that. And I begrudgingly accepted and learned over practice that they were right about that. And I got to thank you guys for covering the series.
All right, bud. Congratulations. Ryan Steele, your second place finisher here tonight.
Thank you.
And Mike, that will leave our race winner, Jeff Hollingsworth, with you.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going, man?
Hey, sorry, I was talking to Wayne down there. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. So you win your heat race, get on the pole, basically control the race from the get-go here, come home with race win, first repeat winner of the season. How is it feeling, man?
It feels great because I didn't think I'd get this one. I knew I'd probably be top 5 just going by practice. Now everybody was doing it. I was, not being cocky, but I was pretty sure I'd be a top 5 car. But it wasn't hard because of half the race was under caution. So, just getting a jump and maintaining the lead, I didn't have to race anybody side by side like the rest of them were. So I didn't have as much on me as these other guys did. I was just telling Wayne, man, him and Ryan and, who was it? Schmeier, man, they were all wheeling back there together. And I guess Butch and Chad made it up there at the end, but it was a fun race. I had a good time.
Yeah, it looked like you had those restarts figured out. Every time there was a restart, you were out to about a half-second lead before we even made it to the first corner. So,
yeah, I was watching Wayne's. I told him I was watching his heat races, watching how he was jumping it. Just not jumping the start, but just getting a really good jump on the start. And I'm like, man, that's how to do it. You got to get that little gap. So, a lot of fun, man. Good racing.
yeah, so first repeat winner. Improves your standings here, get you probably closer, if not the race lead.
Nah,
So.
it won't be. I'm 23 behind. It shows. I've had a couple of bad looks, but I think this season is gonna be pretty close actually between the few at the top there. So it's kind of exciting for me to be in actual contention for Tuesday. I'm usually a 5 to 3rd place guy in there, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
How you doing, Frank?
Look forward to, or kind of be like,
You cut out, man. I didn't hear. I just heard something. Look
oh,
forward.
is that going to be something you look forward to, or not really?
What's that? Next week?
Yeah, next week at Daytona.
No, but we got to do it. We got to do it. So I'll just race it like everyone else, and we'll roll them dice and see what happens. Hopefully, it'll be a good, clean race, and we'll have some racing and maybe some pit strategy involved, and that would make it cool. We always stand a chance when that happens. So we'll see. I'm going to be here. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, anybody you want to thank before we let you go celebrate your race win here?
Yes, sir. Let's throw it out to the DAV, Disabled American Veterans, U.S. Coast Guard, and Purple Heart Homes. My boy Timmy over there is an employee. It's a great organization. And tonight, teammates in here, we had Ross, we had PK. What? You all right, Frank? PK and Charles and Freddie. Anyways, and we had a good time, and congrats to Ryan and Wayne. They wheeled it pretty good. It was a fun night, and shout out to Butch and Chad for the top 5s. Appreciate you guys, and always appreciate this league, and pretty cool that old Bob's out there wheeling with his new hip. So I hope he heals up quick. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate you.
So that was Jeff Hollingsworth, your race winner. I apologize for that if that did get over air. That came completely out of nowhere. But anyway, what a race here tonight. A lot of fast action here. Cars might not have been fast, but certainly by time, it was certainly a very, very quick night here at Hickory, and we saw a lot of good, close side-by-side racing.
Yeah, from the heat races to the main, it was definitely a lot of a different race of a different animal there. You had side-by-side racing, and people were able to make some passes. We had some restarts that left guys thinking whether or not they could get down or not, and shook up the race a little bit there.
Absolutely. And right now we'll take a look now at the finishing results here. Jeff Hollingsworth taking his 2nd win of the season. Ryan Steele, Wayne Hutchinson coming home in the top 3 positions. Butch Davis and Chad Simpson rounding out the top 5. Jeff Schmeier, Dennis Fuson, Charles Woods, Brian Barnes, and Lyle Swearingen, your top 10. Ross Rawlings, Julian Ritchie, Dan Brazington, Angelo Espo, and David Weaver, your top 15. Keith Kellman, Earl Weaver, Bob Beltrami, Paul Crumry, and Wayne Fleet, your top 20. James Campbell and Fred Williams rounding out the field of drivers that started. Tim Bates and Carl Burke did not start here this evening. So for my broadcast partner, Mike DeMoney, my name is Frank Marchese. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight. We will see you all next Tuesday night at Daytona International Speedway to round out the first half of the season. Good night, everybody.